All right, I would like to start with invocation prayer. Join me. You know it. Samasta jana kalyane niratam karunamayam namami chinmayam devam sadgurum brahma vidvaram sadgurum brahma vidvaram. Let's start with a 5-minute meditation. Shall we do the sacred pause again? All right, and then the more that you practice, you will remember. So remember, what is the first thing to do after sitting up straight and tall, taking a deep breath? Listen to sounds, and then breath, and then body, and then mind, and then think of the Lord in whatever form that moves you and speaks to you, and then sit in silence. Okay. So let's close our eyes and sit up straight. Open up your lungs, take deep breaths in and out. Feel that wonderful energy that you're breathing in. And letting go, dropping any fatigue or worry. And just focus your mind very, very strictly just on observing sounds. See if you can just observe without thinking or commenting. And now observe your breath, again without thinking or commentary. Now bring loving attention and scan your body. Just check in. How is it feeling? And just check in with your mind. So I'm asking, how is my mind? What mood is present? And just hold your body, mind, intellect just in a spirit of sweet, compassionate, loving acceptance. And to really like yourself and honor it. And then turn your attention to connect with the higher divine power, Divya Shakti, in whatever form your Ishta Devata is. And if you have a mantra, you can chant your mantra. If you don't have a mantra, remember your sankalpa, your divine aspiration for this weekend. And just sit and enjoy the silence of a silent mind and witnessing consciousness, your deepest self. And when you're ready to end the meditation, right now, just think to yourself, with Ishvara Kripa, I can handle anything. And then you can open your eyes and greet the world again. So I think that was 5 minutes. And when you're at work or you're wherever you are, if you need to reconnect because any of these 10, 11 issues is arising, then this is one very helpful way, and you're tuning into yourself. So in fact, this weekend is really not a time to be with me or even Vivekji or even Swamiji, but this weekend is a time to be with yourselves. So when people say, what did you do over the weekend? You can just say, well, I was with myself. And in a way, we are all connected and joined in the higher self. So when we are with ourself, we're actually more connected to everybody. Once, I taught meditation and somebody came up with a very, really good question. She said, when I meditate, I actually feel more alone and it's a little scary. Does anyone have that feeling? Okay, great, that's good. Because really it's connecting us to something vast and huge and all-pervading, and so it shouldn't make us feel more alone, but more connected. Matrimonial ads are in the papers. Well, there was one very tall, dark, and handsome man, and all the women and the parents were wondering, when is he going to get married? And they'd ask his parents, and he said, oh, we'll put a matrimonial out soon, we'll do that. So then finally, the day came in the paper, there was a matrimonial from this tall, dark, and handsome, and it said, tall, dark, and handsome, South Indian Orthodox professional in search of, and what are you in search of? They always say beautiful, rich, whatever. I don't know what they say. But he said, in search of himself. So all the girls and all the parents, prospective parents, were very disappointed. Okay. But he was on one good track. Okay, so we are really in search of ourselves. And the reason that what Vedanta shows us is that the more that we find and connect to the higher self, the Divya Shakti in us, we are much more pleasant to be around. We are so much more, as Swamiji said, we find that love inside. We act from a loving place. So by connecting with our higher self, we are making ourselves much, much better people to be around. And in Chinmaya Mission motto, does anyone know it? To bring the maximum happiness to just me? Okay, no. To the maximum number for just an hour or a day? No, for the maximum time. Okay, so that's really the bottom line of Vedanta and Chinmaya Mission and all our Acharya Swami's teachings. So we are trying to be happy and cheerful, and really on Kargarchat, the best thing you can do for your husbands to ensure their long and happy life is to be happy yourselves, right? To come home going, I have found a Divya Shakti in me, and it's making me a very cheerful and loving person. And everyone wants to be around someone who's cheerful and loving, right? So the $1 million question is, how do we find that And what are the impediments to that, and how do we support each other to really tap into that? So this is what this weekend is for, is learning how to drop anything that stands in the way. And we did an amazing job this morning with 11 different vasanas types, and lots of wisdom about how to defeat them. So we are all trying to drop our vasanas and discover happiness. Okay. To find happiness, we really, what we tend to do is look for it in the world. And I think what I hear people saying mostly is, if the world gives me happiness, I will repay and give to God my love, right? So if the world gives me what I hope for, I will give back to the Lord, right? Have you heard that kind of, like if I get what I wanted, I'll go and give some money, or I'll say some prayers or do something. This is completely opposite from what we really need to be doing. The world does not have the capacity to give us that divine love. It just doesn't. It'll give little tastes and fun and enjoyment for a bit of the time, but really the source of love has got to be different. Really the only permanent, totally reliable, always there, strong source of love is the Divya Shakti, is the divine grace of God who has brought us into being and then works through us and then gives us our lives, and then we get distracted and forget all about him and her, and so that's our process, is to come back to that. And I was just thinking during Navaratri, we talk about Divine Mother, and mothers want absolutely the best for their children. I mean, you don't bring into creation life without wanting the total best. Now, our earthly mothers may not be perfect all the time. That's okay. But Divya Shakti, Devi, Ma, is always perfect. Whatever, whoever, however we've been created, it's been with the absolute wish that each of us reach our highest potential. So they want us to be happy and fulfilled and creative, productive, joyful. Okay, so that's our heritage, that's our goal. But what does come in the way? And one of the things, we have many enemies or vasanas that discourage us, right? I think we've got a good sampling here. There are many things in the world that can bring us, to doubt ourselves or get discouraged. So we have to be very mindful for that and watch out for them, and then find ways to revigorate ourselves and keep that connection to the divine again strong. So if each of us has our own kind of connection or source, to that sense of the divine being with me, it will bless us immensely. Do people have a sense of what I'm talking about? Yes. Raise your hands if you think so. You do. That you have a source, somebody you think about, something, okay, and others a little bit like, I don't think I've had that experience, ever. Okay, so I think everybody's had the experience. You know what I'm talking about. All right, we have to nurture that, because that is the most precious thing that we can be given as humans, is that sense of connection to something very pure and divine and loving. And so if you have a guru, the guru is the most precious. And the guru may be in the body or not in the body, or living now, or lived in the past, or maybe without form, or maybe your own mother or your father or grandparents, whatever it is. It all is a great blessing. So we have to hold on to those precious, precious experiences, because they will nurture us and they'll keep our heart open so we can be there for others. So what are the things that discourage us? The Ripuratmana. Viveki's going to get to that verse today, I think, or tomorrow. The Uddhare Atmanatmanam, Atmanamavasadayet, Atmaiva Hyatmano Bandhu, Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. You know that our self is our best friend, but it can also be our worst enemy. Okay, so we have to learn how to work with ourselves. Gurudev would give a great metaphor, and I love this. He said, you know, when you get in a car, and in those days when he was teaching, they were almost all stick shift, you know, manual, not this fancy automatic. So they were stick shift, and he'd say, when you get into a car to drive, you have to understand your car, and you have to understand the terrain. So if you start going uphill and you don't downshift, what's going to happen? Stall out. Don't tell me nobody now knows how to drive stick shifts. Because this is a great metaphor. I'm afraid in another 10 years we won't be able to use it. Yeah. You know, if you drive a stick shift and you have to downshift to get the power. So he said we have to understand our equipment and understand the environment, and then we can sail through life, you know, smoothly without stalling out and crashing and losing and, you know. Okay. So that means, what is our equipment? Our minds, yes. I mean, the bodies, they're pretty limited equipments too, but you know, that's really the human. We have a human birth, so we're not going to improve our bodies that much more than what we're given. But our minds, we really can cultivate. So, if the mind is in a sad and gloomy and negative state, we are pretty much our worst enemy. Okay, everyone knows what I'm talking about? No? Okay. And when we're upbeat and we're cheerful and we feel positive, then, you know, we think we can take on anything, and we will be so much fun to be around. Okay, because that is a real gift of life, is learning how I am going to be positive no matter what. So we have to learn how to work with our minds and downshift or whatever it is so that we sail through life. And the downshifting, really the kind of pulling back energy in order to face a hill or a challenge, you know, all the spiritual sadhanas can help so much. You know, and you all, I mean, really, the collective wisdom in this room is quite astounding. I just loved each of your solutions there. So we have many things that can uplift us. So, Uddhare Atmanatmanam, we have to by our own self uplift ourselves. So, positive thinking, laughter. It's in my, before I knew you were going to do this, I had laughter. Okay. What really does often influence us the most is our belief systems. And actually, you know, I also study psychology. I have studied, and Hinduism has one of the most positive, realistic, and dynamic philosophies of life. I mean, really, I would say it has the most positive, realistic, wise philosophy of life. You know, the whole thing that we are learning from Vedanta is how to stay positive and how to understand the vasanas, the mind, the mood, whatever, and uplift ourselves. And that's why the Hindu gods, they're always smiling. I mean, you don't see a frowning, you know, Hindu god. And, I mean, I'm not saying anything about other religions, you know, it's just I don't always find that beam smile that I do in the Hindu gods. It's just beautiful. Because they know they can face any challenge easily. And even if they don't get the worldly success, they have the inner success completely. So it's so inspiring. So anyway, the enemies that discourage us are our stressful belief systems. We are living in a world that is more and more busy and fast-paced and challenging. It's not as kind of safe and secure as it was in kind of smaller village life and when, 100 years ago when life was simpler. Okay, so we have a lot of challenging belief systems, and we have to really watch those. And if we see a belief system that isn't really very good, we have to pick it up and nicely put it at the altar of the Lord and say, please take care of it. Okay. Generally, to put all the belief systems in one category, it comes as negative self-talk. Have people heard that before? Okay, that's a nice phrase nowadays. It's a buzzword, negative self-talk. So that's all the stuff we do to ourselves, which is really very defeating. It's very negative, it's not very uplifting or inspiring. So that is something that we really need to look at. And Gurudev always said it's basically regrets of the past, anxieties for the future, and then excitements in the present. I mean, unhelpful excitement, frazzled present anxieties. So, okay, regrets of the past, not helpful. Anxieties of the future, not helpful either. So how do we bring out and regain our connection to peace when we get frazzled, when we get negative self-talk? We are forgetting then to tap into ourselves. We're forgetting to tap into the divine presence in us. If we could live knowing that our Ishta Devata was watching us and blessing us every moment of our lives, wouldn't you feel pretty good? I mean, when we're around, the people that we know love us so much, we feel so buoyant. And, that's really very important to have that. And the fact is, yes, that power is with us all the time, watching and blessing us, but we just completely forget. So, to keep that connection to the divine, so precious, so precious. So coming here together, like it's all satsang, it's all kind of encouraging us, it's all reminding us. It's like Atma Smaran, that just remember the divine self. Remember that. And so we really watch that we're not going to get dragged down. And it doesn't really matter which of these 10 or 11 issues we're dealing with. It's all the same topography, it's all the same. We're getting in kind of a vasana rut. Gurudev would say, vasanas, the best English translation for vasanas are hang-ups. Hang-ups. And he said, very puzzling word, hang up. Nothing hangs up, you hang down. But we get hung up from vasanas. So I guess, it's like the coat gets caught on the hook and we can't get down, so we're hung up. All right, so those are the vasanas, and if we can just see them, that's happening now. Insecurity is happening, jealousy is happening, anger is happening, and then, we see it because we're more and more self-aware. And then we can downshift the car. We can say, quickly, 30 seconds japa. And one person asked a very wise question of, how can I do that with my eyes open? Because I'm at work and there are people all over. Yeah, you can get pretty good at doing things if you practice. You'll definitely get it. Just looking at the person and chanting your mantra to yourself and smiling. You may not hear everything for that minute, but there are lots and lots of ways to inspire ourselves. But the first thing, though, is to work on ourselves. One of my favorite stories is there was an older couple, man and woman, and they were nearing 60, 65, 70, and the wife went to her doctor, and she said, I'm a little worried about my husband. I think he's losing his hearing. And, but you know, I tried mentioning that to him, and he gets very defensive, so he doesn't really want, I can't really ask him to go get his hearing checked. So I'm just telling you about it, because he was the husband's doctor too. And so the doctor said, well, all right, I have, why don't you just do a simple test at home, and you can get an idea of how his hearing is. She said, okay, great, what can I do? He said, so ask him a question first, like 50 feet away, like the other end of the house, or wherever, but where he can still maybe hear you. And ask him a question, really, in just same tone, and then come 10 feet closer and ask it again, and then another 10 feet, and at whichever, if he answers you at 50 feet, then his hearing is fine, right? Even 40 feet maybe fine. 30, then that's a little, probably he's beginning to get some hearing loss. Okay, so the wife said, great idea. Now, the next morning, the husband was in the kitchen having a little, breakfast before going to work, and the wife thought she would ask him, honey, what time are you coming home tonight? So, way at the other end, she said, honey, what time are you coming home tonight? No answer. So she comes a little closer, same volume. Honey, what time are you coming home tonight? No answer. So she comes now, she's 30 feet away. Honey, what time are you coming home tonight? Uh-oh, no answer. It goes 10 feet. Honey, what time are you coming home tonight? And the husband turned around and he said, for the 5th time, I'm telling you, I'm coming home at 7 o'clock. Oops, for the 5th time, I've told you, I'm coming home at 7 o'clock. Okay. All right, so what was happening here? She was sure it was his problem. But actually, it was her problem. Okay. So we have to remember that when, I love some of these groups, it's so cute because, it's so natural to try to fix everyone else, right? So we had a group, I'm angry, so we've got to make sure you all do what you have to do. And that's very natural, and there is some truth to that, but really we have to look at ourselves first. Yes? Is there? No. Okay. So we have to look at ourselves first and be humble and be honest and admit our limitations, because we can't downshift the car, right, if we're not aware. So if we're getting really furious and we're turning, red and blue and purple and starting to get high blood pressure and all that, but we're not really aware of it, we don't stand our family doesn't stand a chance. We will soon erupt and explode, and then everybody gets angry. And okay, but if we notice, oh, I think I'm starting to get a little angry here, or irritable, or sad, or whatever. I can't read them all, but you know the different things. So I'm starting to get that way. Then we can just downshift. Okay, that means sit quietly, pray. If you can pray or do japa, whatever it is that reconnects you. Because it really doesn't matter what practice you do, it's the connection. Does that make sense? Yeah, finding that connection. Yeah, it's so, so important. And connection to the divine doesn't come easily. We can sit praying, and finally, all the great saints, they go, Mother, why aren't you coming to me? Where are you? You've forsaken me. Feeling that connection to the divine is not just a switch you turn on and off. But we hopefully have the conviction that it is possible and that truly the divine presence, the Divya Shakti, is here all the time. I mean, at least intellectually, if we have that conviction. Do we have that conviction?
Yes.
Intellectually, Divya Shakti created us, is blessing us, is giving us life, and will give us great bliss and happiness. Okay? All right. So, and if you aren't intellectually convinced, which is fine, you know, it takes time, then ask questions, go to satsangs, go and bother Swamiji, and you know, because this is what Vedanta sadhana is it really increases our conviction and our understanding of how, yeah, I know I'm full of vasanas, my mind intellect is very petty, very moody, but I am convinced that my true nature is divine. You know, at least that much. Okay, and then we can work on how to nurture that connection and nurture that. And for some people, they don't think of connection, they just think of opening to presence, because divine presence is here all the time. It's our very being, pure consciousness. So it doesn't matter at this point how you solidify that connection. It's just finding a connection there. Very, very precious. And the more connected you feel to that goodness and that absolute love, unconditional love, you know, nothing bothers us very much then. I mean, really, things don't get to us as much. We're much less reactive, less moody, and less sensitive. We don't think things personally. You know, we're just kind of cheerful. So, okay, you can say that, that's fine. I mean, you know, as parents, mothers, whatever, you do have to look after people and, you know, correct things if they're wrong. If your children do something naughty or whatever, you have to say it. But there's something about saying things with love. You can get away with anything. You can say anything with love. You know, it's when you're really angry that you do not want to open the mouth. Just don't open the mouth. That's it. Until you go and spend, if it's 5 minutes, you're lucky. If it's an hour, okay, don't say anything. If it's a day, but you know, we don't want to say things we regret, right? We don't want to have words that wound. So we want to be in control of ourselves and get connected to the divine inside, which will allow us to speak, you know, from loving, positive, cheerful nature. Okay, does that kind of, right? So then there's so many, well, like the introspection that we did this morning. Swami Chinmaya, he had that in a couple of his books, also in Meditation and Life, he talked about that. And he would say, every night before you go to bed, do this introspection daily for like at least a year, or, you know, twice a week forever. And, you know, and so you've gotten a taste of that, you know how to do it, and I gave you a little handout. So introspect, where did my vasanas start shouting and jumping, and when do I lose my poise and my equanimity? And then find ways to detect it, and then negate it. You know, I just really think, Swamiji would say, like, if you smell a dead rat in your closet, he said, in your almirah, how long are you going to leave it there? Not very long, right? You may not take it out, but you will get somebody to take it out. You will get rid of that rat right away. Okay. So he said the same way, it's like once we really see something in ourselves that is not very positive, we'll get rid of it, negate it. You know, we'll be inspired. I'm going to just pick it up. And what can you do? Really pray. Praying is one of the best ways. Offering it to the Lord, please take this from me. You know, all the sadhanas help in various ways. So, and affirmations, you know, and reading, I mean, like Shivoham, Shivoham, Sachidanandam. I mean, these are, you know, I'm blessed, I'm good, I'm Shiva, auspicious. You know, all the Vedantic mantras, teachings, are so inspiring and so, encouraging. Okay, so things like, or in English, I'm peaceful, I'm relaxed, or I'm happy, or joyful. So these kinds of positive thoughts, which actually modern science is really doing some interesting things now. I'm kind of interested in this as neuroimaging and all. I mean, they're finding that like neural pathways get connected, get strengthened, through practice. I guess that shouldn't be very surprising. But the more that we practice uplifting positive thinking, the stronger it becomes in us. And vasanas are nothing but habits. They're just old conditionings, habits from, unfortunately, from lifetimes probably. So it's a lot to get rid of them and develop new habits and new conditionings. But every time you say your prayers, mantra, meditate, you are strengthening your neural pathways through neuroplasticity. You are learning and growing and, strengthening your positivity. Okay, have I convinced everybody? Of course, it's always easier said than done, but that's all right. We know, at least we need to know. And then when we're together, we support each other in that. Okay. So I'm going to tell a little story about how to de-stress from stress. Okay. So there was a woman who really was very sincere devotee, and she really wanted to be happy and to learn Brahma Vidya. Okay, she wanted to learn Vedanta. And there was a great saint, a woman, great saint. I hope people didn't think of a man. Okay, saint in English, I guess, is the same, man or woman. Okay. There was a great Mauni, no, a female saint who practices Maunam is a Mauni, right? So, I think, okay, Mauni. There was a great woman saint who lived in Maunam, but she would write a little bit. She was very divine and very wonderful. And so this woman, this devotee, thought, I will go and visit my guru, the Mauni, and I will ask her for guidance because I really feel like I'm not doing very much. I don't know what sadhana to do. So she went to her and she said, can you please give me some wisdom to guide me now? I really need just some wisdom. Give me something to guide me. So the Holy Mother, the Divine Mataji, wrote down awareness. Awareness, okay. That's a big word, it means a lot of things, but this sincere devotee, she knows, Satchidananda, Shuddha Chaitanya, pure awareness. Okay, so she tried practicing that, sitting and meditating and allowing, that's the highest Vedantic teaching, is being aware of awareness and sitting in presence. Okay. So she did that quite a bit, but she still had a lot of agitations coming in her mind, right? Because mind is mind. So mind is made with agitation. So things kept coming up, and I can't control it, and so she felt even worse then. So she went back to Holy Mother and said, okay, what do I do now? I'm practicing awareness, but I'm still, so many issues come to my mind and reactions and negativities and stuff. So now what do I do? So Mataji wrote, witness, Sakshi, be the witness. Just witness it. Okay, so then this woman, devotee, went home and said, okay, I can do that. So she'd sit and she'd witness. She'd watch jealousy arising, anger arising, frustration arising, resentment arising, tiredness arising. But it kind of helped her separate a little bit. The metaphor of a river and flood, we're usually flooding in the river and tossing and turning over all the rocks and boulders and getting swept away and half drowning. Okay, that's usually us in the river of life and the river of our minds. Okay. But she learned how to, anyone? Sit on the banks, the river banks, and watch the river, not jump in the river. Okay? We don't need to jump in the river. The mind is there. It's not going away very quickly, but we don't need to jump into the mind and strengthen. We need to sit outside the mind. Okay, so she started to do that, and she was witnessing. And then, you can use the third person. I said, Vilasini's going to the store. Vilasini's sitting and doing this. Vilasini's feeling this. And, you get a little bit of separation, not totally identified with the mind, and begin to feel a little more peaceful. Okay, does that make sense? So witnessing. So first was awareness, and second was witnessing. Okay, and this helped her for several months, and she was really kind of feeling a little better, a little more in control, and witnessing things. You can manage it a little better. But she was really, as she got more and more aware of her emotions and more honest, she just started to see how selfish she is. And how, I mean, it's really, there's some not very pretty stuff inside sometimes. So, she started seeing all that, and actually she started feeling really discouraged. Actually, I just have to segue into something, because as a psychotherapist, I have worked with a woman who, and I share many of these ideas. And this mother, she felt so guilty because she really got angry at her daughter. And her daughter was a good kid, a good student. She wasn't terrible, she was only 10. And the mother would get so angry. So I taught her how to just sit and really become aware of the anger, watch it come up, and try to keep her mouth, not say hurtful things. So the next week she came back and she said, yeah, I've been doing that, but I feel so much worse now than I ever felt. And she said, I just feel like I'm seeing all these terrible things in my mind and I don't know what to do, and it was so much better when I wasn't even aware of myself. And seriously, this is true. I said, oh my goodness, I forgot to tell you the second part. I feel like, what is it, Abhimanyu went into the circle and he didn't know how to get out, I felt like I forgot to tell you the most important part. And she was like, okay. The second most important part is while you're witnessing yourself, observing yourself, have compassion. Accept it. It's when we're human. So be compassionate. And she said, oh, okay, I can do that. I can work on that. So she felt a lot better. So, all right, so here in this story, the woman went to Mataji and said, I'm seeing all these things. I'm practicing awareness. I'm witnessing, and I'm not feeling still very good. I'm just seeing all these vasanas come up, and I feel completely overwhelmed. They're just not going away. And so Mataji wrote on her little note, compassion, right? Have compassion. So, we're not perfect, and we don't really have to be perfect. That's the beauty. But we can still be connected, and we can still be sincere, right? Trying. So have compassion for yourself. And, she felt she looked in Mataji's eyes, and she saw that loving compassion from Holy Mother Mataji, and she really thought, she really means it. She means it. She's really very, she loves me, she cares about me. And that's what people, feel from the Lord, from the Guru, that there's so much love and acceptance. That doesn't mean you get a free ride. I mean, Gurudev was so strict at times, and Some greatest blessings in the years of serving him was when he completely blasted me a couple of times. One of which was in Chicago in 1980. Anyway, because he wanted us to improve and to be aware. So it's okay, but keep the compassion. Then you won't get discouraged. Otherwise, you'll get discouraged and go, oh, I can never improve, and all of that. So compassion, and this devotee looked into Mataji's eyes and saw that compassion. So she went home and she practiced that. And also Mataji was reading a book when the disciple came, and she said, "Here, take this book with you." And she had a bookmark in it. And so the woman took it home, and it was the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. And there was a bookmark to one of the verses. There's so many. I mean, you can open it anywhere and get perfect verses. But this one was, Mana prasada samyatvam maunamatma vinigraha bhava samshuddhirityetad tapo manasamuchyate. That was towards the end of the Gita, 17th chapter. Serenity of mind, mana prasadam, serenity, kindliness, samyatvam, be kind. Maunam, have silence, practice silence. We've had a great gift today. Atma vinigraha, self-control. Bhava samshuddhi, purity of heart, purity of intention. Tapo manasamuchyate. So it's said that these are the tapas, the austerities of the mind, mental austerities. So if we practice this, we will really feel more connected. And our Divya Shakti in us will shine brightly and like gold, be shining. So this is, our hope, I guess, from Chinmaya Mission, all the activities of this weekend in particular, all the satsangs, anything that you go to that uplifts you, it's a great thing because you are finding your own pure self again. Sometimes it's buried a little deeply, you kind of have to dig, but you will find it. It is there. All the sages tell us it's there. They promise it's there. And if you feel tired of digging for it, it could be the next, it could be the next shovel. You'll find it. And support each other. So when you meet each other, instead of gossiping about X, Y, or Z, just say, so have you been practicing awareness? Have you been practicing witnessing? How about compassion? Okay, remind each other. And all the gems that we're learning here, just kind of remind. But that's a wonderful topic, right? For when we meet each other. So have you been, Vivekji said this and that, and have you remembered that? Have you been, Swamiji said this, so, okay, so we can really use your friendships in a nurturing way. So I think, shall we end with I'd like to do the 5-minute again. Shall we have a 5-minute? Because the more often that you do it, right, practice makes... Yeah, actually I've heard a new one. Practice makes permanent. I like that too, permanent. But in other words, we might not forget it if we practice that. So let's practice. Okay, everyone sit up nicely. Asana is very helpful. So getting a good posture, closing your eyes gently, opening your lungs, taking a deep breath. We're going to drop all doing and thinking and just witness, just observe all the sounds. Just observe with great curiosity and without commentary. And now bring your focused attention to your breath. Now bring your loving attention to your body. Just scan the body. Let it know that you appreciate it. It works so hard for us. Just observe without judgment the emotions in your mind. View your body, mind, intellect with sweet, compassionate acceptance, just as Mataji, Holy Mother, Divya Shakti would view us. And if you have a mantra, you can use that or connect to your Ishta Devata, either through mantra, sankalpa. And just relax into witnessing consciousness, presence. And then think to yourself, with Ishvara Kripa, I can handle anything. And then with a smile on your face, you can open your eyes and greet the world again, renewed and refreshed. So we'll close with maybe Purnamada prayer. Now the Vikriya's activity type discussion. So, no break in between, right? Because after this we have